Hey yo everybody, this is another installment of Finding Sensibility, where we take positive or inspirational quotes, see if we can make them work in our day-to-day, or if they might just be a product of their times. Tonight's quote comes from Colin Powell. Avoid having your ego so close to your position that when your position falls, your ego goes with it. Rather than focus on the psychological connection of ego and the Freudian idea of it, we're simply going to talk about what the societal and cultural idea of ego has become. Simply because Freud has kind of been debunked as far as his methods and his ideas, while they were revolutionary at the time and have impacted the study of the mentally ill in a massive, massive way that we're still feeling to this day, it doesn't hold a lot of scientific sway. And I don't think that's what Colin Powell is referring to when he's talking about this. What the ego generally represents when we refer to it now is this idea of my self-image rather than myself. And in a lot of ways, it's extremely easy to put that self-image before anything else. Your self-image can be your possessions, it can be your family, your job, your livelihood, your hobbies, your pets, any number of things can ultimately become your self-image and come to define you more than your identity and more than your character. So what I think he's trying to caution against is the idea that these things that we choose to do and we find pleasure in and we find fulfillment in can end up becoming more prominent than our ideologies and our understanding of ourselves, which is very dangerous. Ultimately, because the things we accumulate and the things we do and achieve will go away and will vanish. And most of the time, the people that remember you past those points don't remember what you had or how you did what you did. It was how you impacted them. And of course, you could make the argument that your image or your possessions or anything like that had an impact on somebody. But I'm going to argue that a little bit. And we're going to say that it is your identity and your character that really will be what people remember, what people recognize about you, once all your possessions and your life and everything else have gone to pass. The problem with the ego in our current society is that it's gotten just completely out of control. There is such a minimal distinction between our self-image and our self-actualization. And it's very easy to be distracted with these kinds of things. Everything we have is flashy and bright and always new and always bigger and always better. And so when we get to a point where we're actually alone with ourselves and our ideas and we don't have something telling us what to think or telling us that this justifies our decisions, we kind of end up with nothing. We realize we're a blank slate. There's nothing to read, there's nothing to gain from our identity. And that's a scary thing, and that's a sad thing. If you think of people in a relationship, or if you think of a relationship you've been in or are in the past or present, what you can think about as far as what the quote is saying there is a tendency, whether it's a romantic relationship or a platonic or a professional relationship, when that relationship ends, it's very easy to go into a bit of an existential quandary. What could I have done? Was I not attractive enough? Did I not have enough money? Was my car not nice enough? Am I too sloppy? Am I too dirty? Am I too clean? Am I too much of a perfectionist? Do I spend too much time with my family? Do I not spend enough time with my family? Am I not available enough? Do I not work hard enough? Do I work too hard? There are all of these things that are ultimately determined by your self-image and not necessarily your character, not necessarily your identity. And so when you find yourself questioning these things, two things need to be considered. Number one, are any of these things actually your identity? Are any of these things actually your character, what makes you you on an intangible level? And number two, if it is not part of that, but these things are still probably part of the reason, that person needed to be out of your life. That was a toxic individual. That was a Delilah who cut your hair every night to keep you from being strong, to keep you from developing a hardened character at the core of your being. It was somebody who expected this ego identity to determine who you are and what you do. And that's not okay. I mentioned an intangible component to all of us. And whether you believe in God, some other deity, some other religion, some other spirituality, whether you believe in science and magnetism, or I don't really care if you believe in nothing. There's no way to deny that there is something beyond the concrete world to our lives, to our existence. And there's something that draws us to other people and something that pushes us away from other people. And it goes beyond knowing the faults of that person. And it goes beyond knowing the strengths of that person. Call it love at first sight, call it destiny, call it fate, call it, I don't care. Call it whatever you want, but know what it is when you call it something. I call it music. There is a tone that everybody has inside. And when you're around somebody whose tone harmonizes with yours, you feel it. It goes beyond words, it goes beyond a physical sensation. It's just there and you recognize it. Same if your tone clashes with someone else's. You feel that dissonance. And again, it goes beyond a physical representation of the world, but it's there. And I don't know what else to call it. This is my best explanation. This is my best idea for how to describe it. And it's really easy to not hear that tone with the sound of everything we're supposed to have, or that we should have, drowning it out. So ask yourself what it is that people recognize about you. When people think of your name, what is it they associate with? Is it your job? Is it your money? Is it your house, your family? Is it something of the world? Or is it something intangible? Is it your courage? Is it your ideology? Is it your composure? Is it your professionalism? Is it your candor, your humbleness, your anger, your temper? What is it? Is it something intangible, that you represent that can never be taken away from you and that will always be remembered? Or is it something physical that's eventually going to turn to dust someday? And us along with it. But our ideas and our intangible nature is what people are going to remember. Is what people are going to strive for when they think of you. So try to cultivate that. Try to set up a better, harder line between your ego and existence. And it's not easy, but I kind of think it's more important now than it ever has been before. And I'm probably not the first person to say that, and I'm sure I won't be the last. But try to find it. What are the intangibles that represent you? And how can you limit your ego attachment and your ego representation to other people? Until next time, stay tuned and stay real.